He's such an easy fool, he won't realize I'm having an affair. My wife quietly messaged my boss to ridicule me, yet she never imagined I had discovered it all, and rallied every friend and ally to destroy her. It was 9:47 p.m. I was just settling into my favorite recliner, cold beer in hand, ready to unwind. Then, my phone buzzed. It was Kate, my wife of 12 years. The message flashed across the screen, "I'm staying at Monica's tonight. Wine and spa. Don't wait up for me." Just a few words, but they hit me like a physical blow. Something cold, icy, settled deep in my stomach. Kate. My Kate. The woman who complained about a wet towel on the bathroom floor, suddenly in the mood for a spontaneous slumber party. "Sure you are, honey," I muttered to the empty room, setting my beer down with a little too much force. Kate, my beautiful, ambitious, and utterly controlling wife, was an HR director at this tech startup, Tedflow Solutions. Lately, that company had been eating her alive, late nights, calls in her study, a sudden interest in yoga pants and expensive perfumes. I'd seen the signs before, but I'd pushed them away, told myself I was just being paranoid. But that night, the house felt different without her. Not peaceful, no. It felt like the unnerving silence before a massive storm. I grabbed our shared laptop from the kitchen counter. Just checking the weather, I told myself, but my hands were shaking. Kate had always been careless with passwords, using the same one for everything. Harper, 2011, the year we bought our house. Her email was still open. And the first thing I saw, my blood ran cold. A confirmation from the downtown Marriott. "Thank you for your reservation, Miss Harper. We look forward to welcoming Mr. Croxant and you to our executive suite." Yen Croxant. Her boss. The CEO with the perfect teeth and the fancy BMW, who'd been calling our house at all hours about urgent work matters. My hands trembled as I scrolled. More emails. Dinner reservations at restaurants I'd never been to. Spa appointments for 2. A receipt from a jewelry store for a man's watch, definitely not mine. Monica's house, my ass, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. I opened her WhatsApp backup. I felt like a criminal, but I couldn't stop. The messages between Kate and her little circle of friends painted a picture that turned my stomach. Kate, "Nick is working late again. Perfect timing." Monica, "Girl, you're living dangerously. What if he finds out?" Kate, "He won't. He's too busy with his stupid workshop to notice anything. Besides, Yen makes me feel alive again." Zoe, "Just be careful. Men like Nick can surprise you." Kate, "Nick. Please. He couldn't surprise me if he tried. He's predictable as clockwork." I just sat there in my kitchen, staring at my wife's words, feeling something dark and cold spread through my chest. Predictable. That's what she thought of me. Nick Harper. The guy who fixed cars for 20 years, who built a small business from the ground up. The guy who remembered how she liked her coffee, who never forgot an anniversary. Predictable. My phone buzzed again. A new message from Kate, "Having a great time. Monica says hi." I glanced at the Find My app. Katie's dot was blinking from the Marriott Hotel, not Monica's house in the suburbs. "Monica says hi," I repeated, snapping a screenshot of her location. I'll bet she does. I spent the next hour meticulously sifting through everything. Bank statements revealing charges at expensive restaurants on nights she'd claimed to be working late. Credit card bills for lingerie I'd never seen. A sickening trail of lies stretching back months. The front door opened at 6:23 a.m. I was already at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee, a folder stuffed with printed evidence, watching the sunrise through our picture window. Kate tiptoed in, like a teenager sneaking past curfew. Her hair was messy, makeup smudged. She froze when she saw me. "Oh, you're up early," she chirped, trying to sound casual, but her voice was a little too high. "That's funny," I cut her off. My voice was calm, almost dangerously so. "Because I just saw you booked a hotel room with your boss." The color drained from her face, leaving it ashen. "Wait, how?" I slid the laptop across the table, revealing the email confirmation. "Oh, and Monica sends her regards. From the Marriott Executive Suite." Katie's mouth opened and closed, like a fish out of water. For the first time in years, my predictable wife was speechless. I stood up, tucking the folder under my arm. "We'll talk when you're ready to tell the truth. All of it." I walked out, leaving her standing like a statue in our kitchen. I drove straight to my workshop. For the first time in months, I felt wide awake. My workshop was my sanctuary, a converted garage filled with diagnostic equipment and the comforting smell of engine oil and metal. Kate never came here. It was too dirty and loud. I called my old friend, Rob Martinez, a retired cop who ran a private security firm. He answered on the second ring, his voice raspy. "Nick, what the hell? It's 7 a.m. Someone better be dead." "My marriage is," I told him, the words flat. "I need some advice." Rob showed up 20 minutes later with coffee and donuts, took one look at my face, and knew it was going to be a long conversation. I showed him everything, the emails, the bank statements, the WhatsApp messages. Holy hell, Nick, he breathed, shaking his head. Man, she really did a number on you. You want to divorce her? I want to destroy her, I said quietly, the anger a cold, hard knot in my gut. Her, and her boss, and every single one of those so-called friends who helped her lie to me. Rob raised an eyebrow. That's dark, even for you. What are you thinking? I'm thinking Kate's right about one thing, I said, a grim smile playing on my lips. I am predictable. But maybe it's time I surprised her. We spent the morning planning. Rob's police background was invaluable, outlining what I could and couldn't do legally. The key was public humiliation, without crossing into criminal territory. Step 1, financial pressure. I immediately changed all the passwords on our joint accounts, effectively locking Kate out. Then, I called the credit card companies, reporting suspicious activity on her cards. They were frozen within hours. Bank fraud alert, I told Rob, grim satisfaction. Completely legitimate, considering she's been using our joint card for her affair. Next, I moved everything of value from our house to the workshop. My tools, important documents, family heirlooms, even my grandfather's watch collection. If Kate wanted to play games, she could do it in an empty house. My phone was blowing up. Kate calling, texting, pleading for me to come home and talk. I ignored every single message. At noon, I drove to Monica's house in the suburbs. Monica Chun lived in a pristine colonial with a perfect lawn and a minivan in the driveway. She was Kate's oldest friend, the one who'd supposedly been covering for her. Monica answered the door in yoga pants, a look of surprise on her face. Nick, what are you doing here? I thought I'd thank you personally for all those sleepovers with Kate, I said, pushing past her into the foyer. It must have been exhausting covering for her hotel visits with Yen. Monica's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you don't? I pulled out my phone and showed her the WhatsApp conversations, her own words mocking me. Because I have text message screenshots of you giving my wife advice on her affair. Want to see? Monica's hands flew to her mouth. Oh my God, Nick, I'm so sorry. I told her it was wrong. I tried to talk her out of it by helping her plan it. My voice rose, sharp and cutting. By giving her alibis. By laughing about how stupid and predictable I am. Monica burst into tears. Her husband, Jeff, jogged out from the kitchen, demanding to know what was going on. Your wife has been helping mine cheat on me, I stated simply. I thought you should know. I left them arguing in their perfect foyer and drove to my next stop. Flow Solutions occupied 3 floors of a gleaming glass office building downtown. I'd been there twice, once for Kate's company Christmas party, and once to pick her up when her car was in the shop. The receptionist recognized me and waved me toward the elevator. Kate's office was on the 2nd floor, in HR. She was at her desk, typing frantically on her phone, probably trying to do damage control with Monica. She looked up as I knocked on her doorframe, her face a mask of panic and guilt. Nick, you can't be here. This is my workplace. Is Yen in? I asked conversationally. I thought I'd introduce myself properly. Please don't do this, Kate whispered, her voice cracking. You don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly, I countered, my voice low and dangerous. You've been sleeping with your boss and lying to me about it for months. What's not to understand? Kate's assistant, Zoe, looked up from her desk outside the office, eyes wide. Other employees were starting to notice the commotion. Where's his office? I asked Zoe directly. Top floor, she stammered. But you need an appointment. I'll make an exception. Yen Croxant's corner office was everything I had expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, a city view that probably cost more than my annual salary. The man himself was on a conference call, gesturing at a screen. He looked up as I walked in, his expression shifting from confusion to recognition to something close to primal fear. I'll call you back, he snapped, ending the call abruptly. Nick, right? Kate's husband. What brings you here? Just wanted to thank you for taking such good care of my wife, I said, walking toward his desk. The hotel receipts, the expensive dinners, the jewelry. Very generous. The other executives exchanged nervous glances and quietly exited the office. Yen's perfect composure was starting to crack. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding at all. I pulled out a flash drive and set it on his desk. That's copies of everything. Emails, texts, bank records. Your wife might be interested. Yen went pale. What do you want? Nothing from you. I just wanted you to know that the rules of the game have changed. I turned for the door, then stopped. Oh, and Yen? Your wife, Clara, says hi. We had a lovely chat this morning. I hadn't actually spoken to his wife yet, but the look on his face told me he believed it. Sometimes, the best lies are the ones people expect to hear. Kate was waiting at my workshop when I got back, slumped in a folding chair by my workbench, tears streaming down her face. She'd managed to get in with the spare key I'd forgotten about. "You can't do this," she said flatly. "You're tearing everything apart." "I'm not tearing anything apart," I countered, hanging my jacket on a hook. "I'm just sharing the truth. Isn't honesty important in a marriage?" "This isn't honesty, it's revenge." "Maybe it's both." Kate stood up, her hands clenched into fists. "You froze my credit cards. I couldn't even buy lunch today. And Monica won't return my calls. And Jeff is asking questions." "Good," I said. "Maybe Jeff deserves to know what kind of woman he married." "You bastard." Kate's voice was pure venom. "You think you're so righteous, but you're just a bitter little man who can't stand that his wife outgrew him." That one hurt, a deep, sharp stab, but I kept my expression neutral. "Outgrew me? Is that what you call sleeping with your boss?" "Yen understands me. He appreciates what I bring to the table. He doesn't take me for granted like you do." "And what does he bring to the table besides hotel rooms and expensive dinners?" Kate's face flushed. "He makes me feel special, important. When I'm with him, I'm not just Nick Harper's wife who does the laundry and the grocery shopping. I'm Catherine Harper, a successful professional woman who deserves better than this." She gestured around my workshop in disgust. And something inside me snapped. "Better than this?" I roared, my voice rising. "You mean better than the man who worked 60-hour weeks for 20 years to put you through college? Better than the guy who supported you through 3 job changes and your mother's cancer treatment? Better than the husband who never once forgot your birthday or anniversary, even when you forgot his? Better than the man who believed every single lie you told him for months because he trusted you completely?" My voice was trembling with raw emotion. "Yeah, Kate. You definitely deserve better than that." She stared at me for a long moment, the tears still flowing. "I never wanted this to happen. It just happened." "Affairs don't just happen," I shot back. "You made choices. Every hotel booking, every lie, every time you looked me in the eye and told me you loved me while planning your next hookup, those were choices." Kate wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "What do you want from me? You want me to beg? Fine, I'm begging. Don't destroy my career. Don't ruin my friendships. I'll end it with Yen. I'll go to therapy. Whatever you want. It's too late for that." "Why?" "Because your precious ego is bruised. Because I called you predictable." The words came out lower than I intended, but they hit Kate like a physical blow. "Because you and your friends laughed about how stupid I was. Because you thought I was too pathetic to ever find out." Kate's face crumpled. "I didn't mean, yes, you did. And you were wrong." My phone buzzed with a text from Rob, package delivered to Mrs. Croxant. She seemed very interested in the contents. I smiled for the first time all day. "Looks like Clara got her care package." Kate's eyes went wide. "You didn't." Photos. Bank records. Hotel receipts. It's amazing what you can find in public records if you know where to look. "Are you insane? Yen will destroy you." "With what?" "He has more to lose than I do. A wife, kids, a reputation. A board of directors breathing down his neck. I'm just a predictable guy with a tool shed." Kate pulled out her phone, probably to warn Yen, but I was already walking toward the door. "Where are you going?" "To finish what I started." The Reversey Grill was Kate's favorite restaurant, the place she and her friends gathered for their weekly girls' night out. I had called ahead and reserved the back section, telling them I was planning a surprise party. Monica, Zoe, and Amanda, Kate's 3 closest friends and co-conspirators, were already there when I arrived at 7 p.m. They sat around a circular table, whispering frantically and checking their phones. They looked up as I approached, their faces a mixture of guilt and defiance. "Nick," Monica said cautiously, "what are you doing here?" "I thought we should all have a talk," I said, taking the empty chair across from them. "About honesty and friendship, and what happens when you help someone destroy a marriage." Zoe, Kate's assistant, spoke first. "Look, we know you're upset, but this is between you and Kate." "It is," I corrected, my voice cold. "Because according to these text messages, all 3 of you knew about the affair. All 3 of you helped her plan it. All 3 of you laughed about what a fool I was." I laid printed screenshots on the table, fanning them out like playing cards. The women stared at the evidence of their own words. Amanda, who worked in Tedflow's marketing department, tried to grab the papers. "You can't just violate people's privacy like this." "Privacy? You mean the privacy of my marriage that you all helped destroy?" "We didn't destroy anything," Monica insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. Kate was unhappy. "We were just supporting her." "You supported her lies. There's a difference." The restaurant was filling up, and our conversation was starting to attract notice. "Perfect. You know what's funny?" I continued, my voice loud enough to carry to the neighboring diners. "My wife thinks I'm predictable, boring, too stupid to realize she's been cheating on me for months. But you know what's really predictable? Women who think they're smarter than everyone else, until they get caught. Lower your voice, Zoe hissed. Why? Are you afraid people might hear the truth? That's when Kate burst through the restaurant's front door, her hair wild, face flushed. She spotted our table and rushed toward us, her heels clacking on the hardwood floor. Nick, stop this right now. Stop what? Having dinner with your friends? Kate glanced around the table, taking in the printed messages and the guilty expressions. You showed them. I showed them their own words. Interesting reading. Amanda pulled out her phone and started recording. This is harassment. We could call the police. Go ahead, I said, a dangerous glint in my eye. I'd love to explain to the officers how you all conspired to help a married woman cheat on her husband. I'm sure it would make great social media content. Amanda lowered her phone. Kate sat down heavily in the remaining chair. What do you want, Nick? What will it take to make you stop this? I want you to tell them the truth. All of it. No more lies. No more games. Tell them what you really think of me, and what you really think of them. I'm not doing this here. Then we'll do it somewhere else, I stated calmly, but we will do it. That's when Yen Croxant walked into the restaurant, his face grim, his expensive suit rumpled. He scanned the room until he saw our table, then strode over with the careful steps of a man walking to his execution. Kate, we need to talk. Now. No, Yen. Yes, now. He glared at me with pure hatred. Your husband sent pictures to my wife. She's filing for divorce. The whole table went silent. Kate's face went white. She's taking the kids to her mother's tonight. Yen continued, his voice strained. My lawyer says she'll get half of everything, including my stake in the company. Congratulations, Nick. You've destroyed 2 families. I haven't destroyed anything, I said calmly. I've just shared the truth. If the truth destroys your family, maybe you should have thought of that before you started sleeping with my wife. The words echoed through the restaurant. Conversations at nearby tables ground to a halt. Yen's face turned beet red. You have no idea what you've done. The board is meeting tomorrow morning. They're talking about removing me as CEO. 20 years building this company. Down the drain. Good, I said, a cold satisfaction spreading through me. Maybe they'll promote someone who doesn't sleep with their employees. Yen lunged across the table, grabbing my shirt, but I was ready. I stood up quickly, letting his momentum carry him past me, and he crashed into an empty chair. The restaurant erupted in murmurs and pointing fingers. You crazy bastard. Yen scrambled to his feet, his perfect hair disheveled, his face twisted with rage. I'll sue you for everything you have. With what money? I countered, a cruel smile on my face. Remember, your wife is taking half. And I doubt the board will be generous with your severance package. That's when Kate finally broke down completely, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Her 3 friends sat frozen, unsure whether to comfort her or distance themselves. This is all wrong, Kate whispered through her tears. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? I asked, my voice devoid of pity. Were you planning to leave me for him, or just keep lying indefinitely? Kate looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. I don't know. I was just feeling trapped. Like my whole life was planned out and I didn't have a say in it. Yen made me feel free. Free to lie and cheat and betray the people who loved you. I finished for her. Free to be someone other than Nick Harper's wife. The restaurant had gone completely quiet. Everyone was listening to our public meltdown. I looked around at the faces, some sympathetic, some judgmental, all fascinated by the drama unfolding at table 12. Well, congratulations, I said, my voice cutting through the silence. Finally, you're not Nick Harper's wife anymore. The divorce papers were filed on a Tuesday morning in October, exactly 6 weeks after that night at the Reversey Grill. I'd hired the best lawyer I could afford, a sharp woman named Patricia Wells, who specialized in cases involving adultery and financial deceit. Kate tried to fight, of course. She wanted half of everything, my business, the house. But Patricia had done her homework. The overwhelming evidence of Kate's affair, combined with her use of joint funds to finance it, gave us considerable leverage. Adultery is still grounds for divorce in this state, Patricia explained. And the fact that she used marital assets to conduct the affair plays heavily in your favor. The judge won't look kindly on that. Meanwhile, Kate's world continued to unravel. Yen had been forced to resign as CEO of Tedflow after the board learned of his affair with an employee. The company was facing potential lawsuits and HR violations, and Yen's reputation in the tech industry was utterly destroyed. His wife, Clara, had indeed filed for divorce and was seeking primary custody of their 2 children. Kate's friendships didn't survive either. Monica's marriage was on the rocks after Jeff learned about her role in covering up the affair. Zoe had been transferred to a different department at Tedflow to avoid the gossip and drama. Amanda, the smart one, had posted the video of the restaurant confrontation on social media, where it went locally viral, making Kate and Yen minor celebrities for all the wrong reasons. The house felt different with Kate gone. She had moved into a small apartment across town, taking only her clothes and personal items. I changed the locks and security codes, reclaiming the space that had been ours for 12 years. On the day our divorce was finalized, I was in my workshop when Rob stopped by with coffee and news. Heard something from my buddy at the precinct, he said, settling into his usual chair. Yen Croxant was arrested last night. For what? DUI? Yep. Smashed his BMW into a mailbox outside his old house. Clara called it in, said he'd been drinking and trying to convince her to take him back. I shook my head. Pathetic. Wait, there's more, Rob continued, a glint in his eye. Kate was in the car with him. That stopped me cold. What? Yep. Both drunk, both crying, both blaming you for ruining their lives. The responding officer said it was the saddest damn thing he'd ever seen. I thought about that for a moment. Kate and Yen, two people who had thought themselves so clever, so sophisticated, so much better than old, predictable Nick Harper, reduced to drunk driving and public meltdowns. You know what's funny? I said, taking a sip of coffee. I don't feel sorry for them. I thought I would, but I don't. Why should you? They made their choices. Kate always said I was too nice, too forgiving, too predictable. Maybe she was right about the first two, I conceded. Rob laughed. You're not the same guy you were 6 months ago. That's for sure. He was right. The man who had sat in his kitchen reading those texts, pitying himself and wondering what he'd done wrong, was gone. In his place was someone harder, more calculating, less willing to trust or forgive. The settlement hearing was held on a grey November morning. Kate showed up with a public defender. She could no longer afford a private attorney. I sat beside Patricia, our meticulously organized evidence spread before us. Judge Morrison, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, had clearly seen every variation of marital drama. She reviewed our files with professional detachment. Miss Harper, she said, finally, you are requesting 50% of the marital assets, including the family home and your husband's business. On what grounds? Kate's lawyer, a young man who looked fresh out of law school, stood up nervously. Your Honor, my client contributed to the marriage through her career and domestic support. And by conducting an extramarital affair using joint funds, Judge Morrison interrupted, consulting her notes. I see charges for hotels, restaurants, and gifts that were clearly not for the benefit of the marriage. Kate's face flushed. She whispered something to her lawyer, who shook his head. Your Honor, Patricia said, standing up gracefully. We are prepared to offer Ms. Harper 20% of the liquid assets, excluding the house and the business, in exchange for a clean break. No alimony, no further claims. It was a generous offer, given the circumstances. Kate would walk away with enough money to start over, but not enough to maintain the lifestyle she'd grown accustomed to. Judge Morrison looked at Kate. Miss Harper, do you accept this settlement? Kate stared at me across the room, her eyes filled with something between hatred and regret. For a moment, I thought she might refuse, might drag us into a trial. But her lawyer whispered something in her ear, and she nodded. I accept. Very well. Divorce granted. Just like that. 12 years of marriage, officially over. Outside the courthouse, Kate caught up to me as I walked to my truck. Nick, wait. I turned. She seemed smaller, somehow diminished by everything that had happened. I know you hate me, she said. And I know I deserve it. But I need you to know, I never wanted things to go this far. What did you want, Kate? How was this supposed to end? She was silent for a long moment. I don't know. I guess I thought you would never find out. That I could have both lives. Your mistake was thinking I was too stupid to notice. You weren't stupid, she corrected, wiping her eyes with a tissue. You were trusting, and I took advantage of that. For what it's worth, I am sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for all of it. You deserve better. Yes, I said simply. I did. Kate nodded and turned away, her heels clicking on the courthouse steps. I watched her get into a battered Civic, a far cry from the BMW she used to drive, and disappear into traffic. That evening, as I was clearing out the last of Kate's belongings, I found a photo album tucked behind some books in her study. It was filled with pictures from our early years together, our wedding, our first apartment, vacations, holidays, and ordinary moments that had seemed important enough to save. I flipped through the pages, looking at younger versions of ourselves. Kate in her wedding dress, radiant and hopeful. Me in my army dress uniform, proud and confident. Both of us believing we had found something that would last forever. In the back of the album was a handwritten note from Kate, dated just after our 5th anniversary. To my wonderful husband, thank you for making every day an adventure. I can't wait to see what the next 5 years bring. Love always, Kay. I stared at those words for a long time, trying to reconcile them with the woman who had betrayed me so completely. When had that young, hopeful bride turned into someone who could lie so easily? When had love always become love until something better comes along? I closed the album and put it in the box with the rest of her things. My phone rang as I was loading the last box into my truck. It was Patricia, with news about Yen. He pleaded guilty to the DUI, she said. Lost his license for 6 months, got probation. But that's not the interesting part. Ted Flo is under investigation by the State Labor Board for workplace harassment and discrimination. Apparently, your wife wasn't Yen's first affair with an employee. They found 3 other women willing to testify about inappropriate conduct. I felt a grim satisfaction. Kate had thought she was special, that her relationship with Yen was unique and meaningful. Instead, she had just been the latest in a series of conquests. What happens now? I asked. Civil suits. The company's insurance probably won't cover intentional misconduct, so Yen could be personally liable for damages. He's facing financial ruin. After I hung up, I drove to the storage unit where I had put Kate's belongings. As I unloaded the boxes, I thought about the chain of events that had brought us here. Kate's affair, my discovery, the confrontations and revelations that had destroyed not just our marriage, but multiple families and careers. All because my wife had thought I was too predictable to fight back. The next morning, I woke up in my empty house and made coffee for one. The silence that had once felt oppressive now seemed peaceful. I had my life back, scarred and changed, but entirely my own. I drove to the workshop and opened up as usual. Around noon, a woman in her 30s came in with a worried expression and a car that was making strange noises. My ex-husband used to handle all the car stuff, she explained as I looked under the hood. I'm completely clueless. That's what I'm here for, I said, diagnosing a simple belt replacement. We'll get you taken care of. As I worked on her car, she told me about her divorce, her struggles with being suddenly single, her fears about starting over. I listened without judgment, offering practical advice when she asked. You're very kind, she said when I finished the repair. I was half expecting to get ripped off. Honestly, most mechanics see a single woman and assume she's easy prey. Not all of us, I replied. She paid her bill and left with a smile, and I realized something had shifted inside me. The anger that had sustained me through the divorce was finally starting to fade, replaced by something more like acceptance. Kate had been wrong about me in more ways than one. I wasn't just predictable, I was reliable. I wasn't just boring, I was stable. I wasn't just trusting, I was honorable. Those weren't weaknesses to be ashamed of. They were strengths to build on. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. It's Clark Roxant. I wanted to thank you for opening my eyes about my husband. The divorce should be final next month. I hope you're doing well. I texted back, I am. I hope you and your kids are too. A few minutes later, we are. It's scary starting over, but it's also liberating. I feel like I can breathe again. I understood exactly what she meant. 6 months later, I was having dinner at the Reversey Grill, the same restaurant where I had confronted Kate and her friends. I had become something of a regular, enjoying the food and the atmosphere without the weight of deceit hanging over me. I was reading the news on my phone when I heard a familiar voice from across the restaurant. Kate was there, with a man I didn't recognize. Their conversation was tense and whispered. I can't keep doing this, the man was saying. My wife is getting suspicious. Just give me a little more time, Kate replied. I'm working on getting my own place, a place where we can be together properly. I shook my head and went back to my dinner. Some people never learned. As I was paying my bill, Kate saw me and walked over to my table. She looked older, worn down by the consequences of her choices. Hey, Nick. How are you? Better than I deserve. She glanced back at her companion, who was nervously checking his phone. I'm getting by. Starting over isn't easy. No, I nodded. It isn't. I hear you're doing well. Business is growing. It is. We stood there in awkward silence for a moment, two people who had once shared everything, now with nothing to say. I should go, Kate said finally. My friend is waiting. Married friend? I asked quietly. Kate's face flushed, but she didn't deny it. Some habits are hard to break. Some people are hard to fix. She went back to her table without another word. I left the restaurant and drove home to my quiet house, feeling something like pity for the woman who was once my wife. A year after our divorce was final, I ran into Monica at the grocery store. She looked embarrassed when she saw me, but I gave her a polite nod and continued shopping. Nick, she called out as I was loading my cart. Can I talk to you for a minute? I waited as she approached, noticing the dark circles under her eyes and the wedding ring that was no longer on her finger. I wanted to apologize, she said. For my part in everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know I'm sorry. How's Jeff? I asked. We're divorced. He couldn't get past the lying, the breach of trust. I don't blame him. She shifted uncomfortably. I haven't spoken to Kate in months. After everything fell apart, our friendship just kind of ended. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I truly meant it. Yes, the truth is, I never wanted to destroy everyone's lives. I just wanted the truth to come out. Monica nodded. The truth has a way of doing that, doesn't it? Of destroying things. Only the things that were built on lies, I corrected. She left without another word, and I finished my shopping in peace. 2 years later, I was locking up the shop when Clark Roxant stopped by. She looked healthy and confident, a far cry from the devastated woman I had helped expose her husband's infidelity. I hope you don't mind me stopping by, she said. I was in the neighborhood and wanted to thank you again. How are you? I'm good, really. The kids and I moved to Portland last year. I got a job at a non-profit, and we're all a lot happier. She smiled. Yen visits every other weekend, when he can afford the plane ticket. How is he? Broke, mostly. The lawsuits from his other victims bankrupted him. He's working as a sales manager at a software company now, making 1/10 of what he used to. She shrugged. I can't say I feel sorry for him. And Kate? I heard she moved to Florida. Apparently, she married some guy she met online, but it didn't last. He divorced her after 6 months when he found out she was cheating on him. I wasn't surprised. Kate had never learned that happiness couldn't be found in someone else's bed. And you? Clark asked. Are you seeing anyone? Nothing serious. I'm still figuring out who I am as a single man. Probably wise. Trust is a hard thing to rebuild once it's been shattered. She was right. I had dated a few women, but I found myself constantly looking for signs of deceit, analyzing every word and gesture for hidden meanings. It was exhausting and unfair to them. So, I had mostly focused on work and rebuilding my life. Well, I should go, Clark said. But I'm glad I saw you. You look good, Nick. Happy. I am happy, I realized, as I said it. For the first time in years, I was genuinely happy. After she left, I locked up the shop and drove home through the quiet streets of our small town. The house that had once felt empty now felt peaceful. I had redecorated, removing the last traces of my life with Kate, creating something that was entirely my own. I made dinner for one, watched a movie of my own choosing, and went to bed without checking someone else's schedule or worrying about someone else's mood. It was a simple life, but it was an honest one. And predictable, perhaps. But I had learned that predictability wasn't the insult Kate had intended it to be. Predictability meant reliability, consistency, trustworthiness. It meant being the kind of person others could count on. Kate had thrown all of that away for excitement, passion, and the thrill of forbidden romance. Where had it gotten her? Divorced, twice, friendless, and seemingly incapable of maintaining an honest relationship with anyone. I, meanwhile, had built a successful business, maintained my integrity, and found peace and solitude. I had learned that revenge wasn't about destroying your enemies. It was about refusing to be destroyed by them. The last I heard of Kate was from Rob, who had run into her at a casino just outside of town. She had been alone, drinking too much, complaining to anyone who would listen about how her ex-husband had ruined her life. She looked rough, he told me, like someone who had made a lot of bad choices and was still making them. I felt a flicker of the old anger, but it passed quickly. Kate's problems were no longer my concern. She had made her choices, and I had made mine. On a warm spring evening, 3 years after our divorce, I was eating dinner on my back deck when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Kate. For a moment, I considered not answering, but curiosity got the better of me. Hello, Kate. Nick. Her voice was slurred, and I could hear bar noise in the background. I just wanted to call and tell you something. What's that? You won. All right. You won. Are you happy now? I'm not sure what you mean. Don't play dumb. You destroyed my life, my career, my friendships, everything. And now I'm sitting in some shitty bar in Tampa, drinking alone on my birthday with no money, no prospects, and no one who gives a damn about me. She was crying now, raw and desperate. So, congratulations, Nick. You got your revenge. I was silent for a long moment, listening to her sob into the phone. Kate, I said, finally, my voice steady. I didn't destroy your life. You did. Every choice you made, every lie you told, every person you betrayed, that was all you. I just refused to pretend it didn't happen. You could have forgiven me. You could have given me another chance. Could I? After months of lies. After you called me predictable and stupid. After you used our money to fund your affair. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. There are some things that can't be forgiven, Kate. There is some trust that can't be rebuilt. So that's it. I'm just supposed to suffer forever for one mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was hundreds of them, made over months. And you're not suffering because I won't forgive you. You're suffering because you keep making the same choices. The line went quiet, except for the background noise of the bar. I loved you once, Kate said, finally. I know, I replied. I loved you too. But love isn't enough when it's not accompanied by respect and honesty. I'm sorry, Nick. For everything. I know it doesn't matter anymore, but I am. It does matter, I corrected softly. And I forgive you, Kate. Not for you, but for me. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat on my deck for a long time after that call, watching the sunset and thinking about the road that had brought me here. Kate was right about one thing. I had won. But not in the way she meant. I had won back my self-respect. I had won my independence. I had won the right to live honestly, without lies, deceit, or betrayal. I had won a life that was entirely my own. And yes, I had gotten my revenge. Not through elaborate schemes or public humiliations, though there was some of that, but by simply refusing to let Kate's betrayal destroy me. By building something better from the wreckage of our marriage. The predictable man she had underestimated had surprised her in the end, not by becoming someone else, but by becoming more fully himself. 5 years later, I was a different man, living a different life. My business had expanded to include 3 locations and a dozen employees. I had bought a larger house in a better neighborhood. I had even started dating again, carefully, slowly, but with genuine hope for the future. I never saw Kate again, though I heard occasional updates through the town gossip mill. She had moved back to our town, working as a receptionist at a dental clinic and living in a studio apartment. She had apparently sworn off marriage and relationships altogether, focusing instead on staying sober and trying to rebuild some connection with her family. I wished her well in an abstract sort of way. Not because I had forgiven her, though I had, but because holding on to anger was like drinking poison and hoping the other person would die. On the 5th anniversary of our divorce, I was having dinner at the Reversey Grill when the hostess approached my table. "Excuse me, Mr. Harper. There's a woman at the bar who asked me to give you this." She handed me a folded cocktail napkin with a message scrawled in familiar handwriting. "Thank you for teaching me that actions have consequences. I hope you're happy." I glanced toward the bar, but Kate was already gone. Through the window, I saw her walking down the street alone, her shoulders straight and her stride steady. She looked sober and determined, like someone who had finally learned from her mistakes. I folded the napkin and tucked it into my wallet, alongside business cards, receipts, and the other debris of daily life. It seemed a fitting place for the final word of our story. Put away, but not forgotten. A reminder of where I had been, and how far I had come. The waiter brought my check, and I paid it in cash, leaving a generous tip. Outside, the evening air was warm and full of possibility. I walked to my truck, started the engine, and drove home to my quiet house. And my honest life. Predictable, maybe. But it was a good life, built on truth and earned through struggle. And in the end, that was my revenge. So, tell me, after hearing all this, what would you have done in my place? Have you ever had to choose between anger and healing? I'd really love to hear your thoughts down in the comments.